Hi there, thank you for joining with me this morning. You know, I just love the story of the man who years ago took his film to that 1 hour photo development service, and he left his film and returned later to discover the place was no longer a 1 hour Photoshop, it was now a 1 hour dry cleaners. So the confused man entered the shop and met the same assistant and asked about the film. The gentleman behind the counter just said, was that a suit or was it shirts? No, it was a 35mm film. The assistant said, well, was it to be pressed or was it just to be cleaned? No, it was a film to be developed. And the assistant then said, do you want to look through these suits and see if any of them belongs to you? And the man's getting really agitated by this time and says, with a bit of tension in his voice, I didn't have a suit, I had a film. And then the shop assistant asked the question if the gentleman ever watched TV. He said, sometimes. Then the assistant said, smile, because you're on candid camera. Sometimes life is confusing. Now, you've got to be a certain age to remember candid camera. Well, for me, the story of Abraham has a candid camera feel to it. Abraham was 75 years of age when God called him to leave his home, his extended family, and not knowing his destination, Abraham went. And he did so because he was obedient to God. He also did so because God had made him a promise that he would be a father of a great nation. And this was an amazing promise, considering that Abraham and his wife were getting on a wee bit and had no children, but that was the promise. So many years passed and still no nappies in the washing line. Even if Sarah had a child at this age, would she ever have the energy to look after it? And so Abraham was troubled and he let God know. How did God respond? He took Abraham outside and showed him the sky. It was night and all the stars were out. And they didn't have the light pollution that we have today. There would be thousands of them. You can count them, Abraham, if you like. And that will be the number of your descendants, said God. We're impatient people, aren't we? We want what we want, and we want it now. But there are some things that just can't be hurried, and God's timetable is one of them. It's not our timetable. We don't know why God waited so long. Maybe it was to test Abraham's faith. I don't know. Maybe God felt they weren't quite ready for this life-changing event. Who knows? What I do know is that God knows our needs. And the important thing is, I believe he can be trusted. He's faithful to those promises. So for all of us, maybe the message to you is, don't give up. God told him to look at the stars. But Abraham had his eyes fixed on his own aging body, on the clay, if you like. And God told him not to look at the clay, but to look at the stars. Maybe in these difficult times, and there are difficult times around right now, maybe you and I should do the same. Again, God bless you, and thank you for joining with me this morning.